Welcome back to my Colorado Mountain Garden and Homestead. And this is an update on the basil and the dill that I started on the 16th. Today's the 20th. And as you can see, they've grown a lot just in 4 short days. I like to split, and I mentioned this in the other video when I started these. I like to split these trays apart, and I like using these little containers because these were on a heat mat and they had the dome on it. But as soon as my basil started sprouting, I moved it off the heat mat into another small container like this, and it didn't have a dome on it. But I had to let the dill go for a few more days. Now, when I up pot these, and keep in mind, people are going to go, Kim, you planted too much basil. Well, I densely plant, and part of that is, and I also kind of talked to you about it in the last video, is to give the basil and the dill support from each other, so with the other plants. So for this, I will be taking 2 cells out when it's ready to come out of these, and I'm going to put it into these little 4-inch pots, and I'll split them. So I'll end up with 3 pots of the basil. And I like using these black ones here because they're deep. And both dill and basil have very deep root systems. But my plan is to try and just hold these and not move them to bigger containers until I can put them out in the greenhouse. Now, for the dill, we'll see how many more I get sprouted up. This will probably be, I may put 3 into one of these containers. If I get more germination, which I may or may not because I don't have the dome on top anymore, then I'll decide whether I'll split it into 3 pots. Typically, I keep 2 to 3 pots. And when I say pots, when it ends up into my greenhouse, the fernleaf dill I'll put in 5-gallon containers, and I'll put it out there in the greenhouse on the drip system. Now, the basil, I'm going to use something, the top's wider than what a 5-gallon nursery pot is. So I use more of a decorative planting pot that it's kind of skinnier at the bottom and then wider at the top, and it's just so that I can give this room to bush and everything like that. And I plant a lot of basil. Now this year I'm only going with the Emily basil. I'm not doing the lemon and all that, and the only reason is because we're going to be changing up the hoop house a little bit, which is where the basil will be. And I'm not sure if I'll have the beds totally done and things like that. So I didn't want to have too many pots in the way while we're trying to do construction in there, because I can't leave them sitting outside, otherwise something will eat them and things like that. But just so you know, this is what it looks like. Now, as these get bigger, even if you grow like this and put it in like a red Solo cup, once they get taller and they get a little more root bound, you can pull them apart. So if you only wanted, let's say 5 or 6 of these per pot or whatever you're growing it in, once they're bigger and not as delicate, you can open them up, pull them apart, and put them in different pots or containers, deck railing, whatever you want. This is just what I do. This is how I grow it, and I've been growing basil like this for many, many years, letting it support itself. I find if you stick just one little piece of basil in a pot, yeah, it'll get bushy, but that one little piece of basil, that one stem of basil, is not going to give me enough leaves at a time to make something like pesto. And then again, I freeze dry extra herbs every year. So I have fresh herbs every year. If I haven't used up the stuff from last year, then that I'll just put in my compost pile. But this way I keep having very fresh herbs, which tastes wonderful versus what you buy at the store. The dill, I save many different ways. I use a lot of it fresh. I freeze dry some of it, so I have the dry dill. And then I also freeze some of it so that I can extend my fresh, so-called fresh-like basil for things like, let's say, tzatziki sauce and stuff like that. Versus going and buying dill at the store after I can't garden anymore because it's too cold. So I hope this makes sense. If not, feel free to ask. I just wanted to mention videos that will probably pop up tomorrow on the channel are I'm going to be doing my hot sauce. So as best I can, I'll take videos, but then I'm also going to post still pictures where if I can't do a video on it, I'll snap some pictures and put that over on my Facebook page. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Happy gardening.